This is Lauren Yee, my dear friend, collaborator, playwright, co-conspirator. It is a privilege and honor to see you again.
Yeah, it's always good to see you, Joe. Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah. And so if for those of you who have seen Cambodian Rock Band and wanted to take a deeper dive with us today, um, my connection to the play in particular was that I star in the play. I'm the lead of the show, and I've been working on Cambodian Rock Band for many years now.
Mhm.
And we started, or the world premiere was at South Coast Rep in 2018. But of course, the process existed way before then, or the process has been
Mhm.
ongoing since before then. And so we wanted to bring Lauren in to talk about how it all came to be. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. And I was thinking the other day what was interesting is that like in a way I technically knew you before there was a Cambodian rock band before like we started. But at the same time I would say like our friendship and our collaboration kind of I think kicked off simultaneously almost. Um so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree. Yeah. When we first met, we were working up in Seattle. You had come up to do
mhm,
like a really small workshop or even just like a brief reading of King of the Yees at the time.
mhm.
And you were like, let's gather around. I just kind of want to hear what this sounds like. And yeah,
Yeah,
and I was a part of that early process of that.
yeah, and we didn't know each other then, and you were finishing up at UW, University of Washington, um, and it's fascinating because I think it was a it was a play or it was just like a genre of music that I'd had deep interest in for many years. That like 10 years ago when I first heard Dengue Fever, without knowing anything about them or what their influences were, I was just like, wow, like this sound is incredible. I wanna know this better. I wanna learn more. And it's one of those things where you have the idea, but I think it takes a while for it all to fall into place. Like
Mhm.
there's a version of this that, I heard the music in 2011 and I write the play in 2011, which I tried to do.
Yeah.
And so there are many drafts of a completely different play that predate, our working relationship. And in another world, I would have kind of written and finished that other play and it would have been an entirely different and I'll say much less exciting experience. So I feel like this is one of those rare examples of how everything came together at the right moment. Because I feel like, 4 years later, like after 4 years of thinking about it and wrestling with it, I finally kind of landed on the right way into the story of that music and that history at around the same time, that we were getting to know each other better. And that also, like, that were you leaving grad school and embarking on your career, as a professional actor out there in the world. And I find that it's just like that you meet the perfect person at the exact perfect time.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Like, I was just going to ask you about like what the inciting like
Hmm.
event was, but it seems like it actually spans across several things that like
Hmm.
maybe like the ship gets carried just a little bit further every
Hmm.
single time. So if you were to like go back, would you say that
Hmm.
there was one? And what is it that how did like SCR propel that into
Hmm. I
um,
mean, I
propel
think,
that ship?
yeah, I mean, I think most literally that they commissioned me right around that time when I was like, oh, I've had this idea for a long while, but I just haven't done it yet. And knowing that like dengue fever is based in Southern California, that there's basically the largest Cambodian American population in the country in Southern California. Um, and like all of those elements made it right to be like, I got commissioned by South Coast Rep. Maybe this is the time to tackle that idea. It's like, I think in a way, it's a little bit like the universe telling you, like, now is the right time. Like, there you go. Because the commission that I was working on was a Crossroads Commission, which I believe doesn't exist anymore at South Coast Rep. But when I was there, it did, and it was just like this incredible program where you were commissioned, but before you did any writing, you got to spend a couple weeks in Southern California, specifically Orange County, and just looking at everything. And I think that was like a very formative experience for me. Just the freedom to clear your schedule for a couple weeks and say, whatever nerdy, weird, random interest you've ever had in anything, go look into it, right? And I really ran with it. They were shuttling me around Orange County, and so I was just like, okay, let's just do whatever there is. So like we went to food courts, we went to malls, and it just so happened it's the same thing of like things happening at the right place in the right time, because it was just kind of like a random 2-week period. And there happened to be like the all-day annual Cambodian Music Festival going on. It was, I think, the second one that they did, and it was in Anaheim. And so we went. It was very sunny and very hot. And when I was there, the MC at that event was a gentleman named Rithi Han. And I did not know Rithi, but during a break, because he was just so immediately charismatic. Like you meet someone and you're like, they are a friendly, charismatic person who seems to know everyone. Like I just went up to him and I was like, hey, hello, this is what I'm here for. Would you be willing to talk to me? And he was like, sure. And so like on the final day of my residency here, Andy and I took Rithi to dinner, and Rithi also brought his two friends, Bong Sean and also Sean. And we went to Sophie's in Long Beach, and they told me kind of about their work with the community in Long Beach. And at the end of it, we were like, oh, well, we have like one last evening. What should we do in Long Beach? And they're like, well, we're going to the Cambodia Town fundraiser. And then they called their friend. They're like, okay, I think we can like seat you at our table, like come with us. And we're like, and it's that, I think the joy of being open to whatever comes your way and saying yes, that like you're not always in a place where you can do that. But this program kind of made space for that. And so in circumstances where I'd be like, I don't know, I got to get back. I have things to do. I was like, yes, sure. And it was, kind of like by the end of it, I was like, oh, I think that's probably what my play is going to be about.
So my question going back to you is that like, how much of that was a part of the building of this play? Like you got the commission, you have been sitting on this idea for a long time, and then like piece by piece it comes in. How much discovery were you making, or how much discovery were you making as you like approach this, as opposed to a very, let's say like a little more black and white play, like a little more like, not that you write kitchen sink dramas or anything of that nature, but very standard whatever play, whereas this has like so many elements.
Yeah. I mean, I would say actually in terms of the like the script plot section of it, I think once I got to Berkeley, I cracked a couple last things. I basically like knew what the show was, and like the events were laid down, and that was all really clear to me. And that like if you look at that to production, like very little changed substantially in terms of like events and what characters were doing within scenes.
Yeah.
And I think what happened between Berkeley and production was more about like the music and discovering like where the music fit in, what the best combination of things were. Were we getting enough music? How does it work? Oh, Joe's not on stage at this point, so you got to do the music differently.
Yeah.
How much time do we need? Do we need some transition music? I think like with this script, it was almost, it gave us kind of all the different columns or like building blocks or whatever you want to say. And then it was a much longer period of like different stages of like adding music. Because like I think as the show grew, it went from like 4 songs to 7 songs to 10 songs, you know, to eventually in the show we have about like 12 to 13, depending on how you count it. And also I think in a way that was to allow everyone to grow into those parts too. You know, that there were some people in the cast who came on as musicians first, and they probably would have had no trouble, you know, nailing the music. But I think also, you know, we had people who maybe might consider themselves actors first. And so, you know, for instance, I feel like you grew into that role with every workshop, you know.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm curious if you can speak to that, of like what that was like. Because also like some of your abilities and preferences like guided what it became musically.
Yeah, I mean, like on the acting side, there were definitely major changes from when we first, like when I first saw the script, like the first time to the end, like the end, not say the end product, but the production product, the production, whatever it is, right? World premiere. That, say, for example, like the guitar thing, the switching guitar thing was a major thing for me, or a major moment for me. And also, I think early on, there was no ode tune, like, or at least it wasn't as stated out or as clear or something like that. And so it was a new elements. There were always constantly new elements. And I think that the wonderful thing about like working on your plays is that I felt like I feel like I'm constantly surprised. And as a writer, and I will call out one of your fun quirks, as a writer, you do 2 things. One is that Lauren Yee typically will write like a little title or a subtitle to what the scene is supposed to be. And it can be as basic as Truman on the Street, or it can be all like, the scene where he discovers the thing, or like whatever, or what's in the box, like whatever it is. And then the second thing that I love about your writing, the other thing I love, I think it's just fun quirk. And it's not necessarily leading, right? Because it can be however we end up interpreting it too. The second thing that's really great about your work, the way when I've read scripts, is that you don't have like a bunch of like what's the word I'm looking for, punctuation, and you don't like to capitalize things unless it's like Lauren Yee saying like, this is very crucial, but other than
speak it louder, Joe.
That's pretty much it. But like there's a thing that like is great about that, because it gives us as actors a lot of room to play, because it feels like you're actually giving us the gift of interpretation. And then when we like, it's fun because when I've been in a room with you, I'm all like, so what, like people who are actors who are get like anxious about that, they're like, but what does that mean, Lauren? And you're like, I don't know.
Oh, you mean like, what is this? I'm like, because that's true. It's like when you're in a room, either you wrote it and you don't have any idea of what it means yet. And you're like, I don't know, he just said it. Or you do have some idea, but if somebody else can't tell what it is, then that's useful information. Like if I'm like, oh, he's obviously hiding something here, and you as the reader do not get that, that's Interesting to consider.
Yeah, then there's like questions about like, do I need more? Do I need less? Is there
Hmm.
clarity things? Yeah, so then I would ask you like, what other to share with the audience some fun
Hmm.
stuff, but like, what other quirks do you feel like you have as a writer, or or even in your
Hmm.
process? How do you work?
I always say, like, I think I bring in collaborators a lot sooner than other people might. That I think, assuming that the bar is very low, and that it's a room full of people I trust, because also, like, if it's people you trust, you don't need to spend time trying to make sure they think you're good.
Yeah.
You don't have to like spend energy impressing them. You're
Hmm.
like, we're here to do work, and I'm thankful for you guys to help me with this work. Like, let's just figure something out. Um, and so I really enjoy like that workshopping process, that you've obviously been a big part of this one, but I also feel like you've had a hand in, like the other two big plays, or three, that I've worked on in the past couple years. And so, like, that's kind of fun, right? To like try on different roles.
Yeah, and the thing that, and I would say this honestly, it is a privilege and honor to work with
Hmm.
you all the time, and the reason is because I do feel that you are very open and trusting, and our relationship
Hmm.
is one that you don't have to prove anything, and that's
Yeah.
wonderful. I have worked with other playwrights who literally are like, "Is this script good?" And it literally is like so much script, like
Hmm.
it's so like it's already flush it out, like I don't need to even work on this in any way, and they're already like, I've given it to you, and they're like, is it good? And I'm like, Lauren has brought to me things that are like, I don't know, do this thing, and then like the next time we meet each other, it's a whole different script.
Yeah.
Or she's, they're, has flown me out to like, she, like, hey, come do this workshop for this thing, and then I show up and she's like, actually, we're not doing that play. I didn't want to work on
Nope.
that. I've decided to work on this other
Hmm.
play. And that is also wonderful because it does allow for there to be this trust between collaborators, that like I think that I would say that we
Hmm.
are,
Yeah.
um, in that sense, and it gives me a freedom, and I hope it gives Lauren a freedom to have that. Um, yeah, so as we're going to wrap up, I want to ask, yeah, knowing all these ways you write new work, how
Yeah.
has the pandemic affected your writing,
Yeah.
if at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been hard to recreate the types of theater experiences I've had when we could meet in person.
Yeah,
That, like, even though you and I can technically talk across, the internet, um, kind of like nothing beats that energy of like being in the same room with someone, and having just like sustained focus and like
mhm,
sparkiness. um so I think, like, I've realized that it's like I just kind of can't recreate the same things that I was doing, um before the pandemic. I think it's really made me think about, um just like the pandemic as a time for new, like, learning and like new skills, and thinking about the things that I wasn't strong on before, and just like also rest.
yeah,
That the I think it can be hard, but just thinking that, like, it also is okay to be fallow for a little time, and taking that time to kind of like refocus and think about things that are meaningful. Because I definitely knew Cambodian Rock Band just has been this like incredible wave that I've been traveling on, that and that you've been traveling on for on and off years now.
yeah,
And kind of, I knew that once like the New York production closed, in a way, that was it would be kind of like the capstone, um on a very special experience. And it's like, okay, Lauren, go work on something new. But I didn't think the it would be like quite so tumultuous, the transition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's something about the magic in the room about a workshop, and
Hmm.
I immediately think about Che, our
Hmm.
director for Cambodian Rock Band, in which like being in a room with someone gives you the like you get to feel what people are thinking. And I
Mm.
often felt like Che would turn to you and be like, Lauren, what are you thinking right now in the middle
Yeah.
like of a
Yeah.
scene when you're like oddly silent or like
I'm like, hmm. Yeah.
there's thoughts going on? Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think we definitely miss that just as much as like live theater has brings us to that.
Yeah.
That sort of like ability to be engaged on stage and be engaged with places and people and stories.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So as we're wrapping up, is there anything that we have to look forward to that you want to share with us?
Um, let's see. I mean, looking forward to theater when theater comes back, at South Coast, elsewhere. I think one of the first productions I'll have whenever we get back is a new play called Mother Russia, which will be at La Jolla Playhouse. And it's,
Mhm.
in a way, continuing my interest in communism in the 20th century,
Yeah.
about a pair of like Russian bros uh, in the wake of the fall of communism. So it's light, fun take on communism.
Yes. For all the iterations that I've read of it, it
Yeah,
has been a
yeah,
riot, absolute
yeah,
riot. So um, that's great. And we'll see each other soon.
yeah,
And yeah, thank you, SCR, for having us and for having Lauren talk to all the fans, friends, patrons,
yeah,
folks who are loving on SCR. And I
yeah,
hope you all continue to support SCR through this time.
yeah.
Yeah,
And also, if you enjoyed Cambodian Rock Band, there will be the national tour at some point when
at some
theater comes
point.
back. I think like exact tour dates and locations TBD,
Yeah,
but that I was like, if you want to see Joe No again, you might get a chance. Who
I will
knows?
be there. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today.